Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Envoy Medical. It trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol COCH. It's based in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and helps people regain hearing health with the first fully implantable devices that provide true 24/7 hearing using the natural ear to pick up sound. Envoy Medical is dedicated to pushing hearing technology beyond the status quo to provide patients with improved access, usability, independence, and ultimately quality of life. Happy to welcome Brent Lucas, CEO, and David Wells, CFO. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right, well, the floor is yours. Call me back when you're ready for questions.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone, for your interest in Envoy Medical. We are a hearing health company, recently listed on the NASDAQ under COCH. I am Brent Lucas. I am the CEO of Envoy Medical. I've been with the company since 2007, became CEO in 2015. And we're also joined by David R. Wells, who is our CFO. He's a new member to the Envoy team, but has been in the public markets for over 2 decades. So he is well versed in the public markets. I am going to do my best to quickly go through our slides so we can have 10 to 15 minutes of questions at the end. And I'm going to try to have a conversation here. The slides I won't follow perfectly. They're on our investor page if you would like to see them and spend some more time with them. But I would like to just do my best to educate you on Envoy Medical and the hearing loss market and why we believe we are well positioned to disrupt the hearing implant business. So who are we? Envoy Medical is a hearing health company. We do not make hearing aids. We are not a hearing aid manufacturer. We make surgically implanted hearing devices that are targeted for those patients who hearing aids no longer do enough for. And we'll get into that in a little bit. We are on the leading edge of what is a natural progression to fully implanted or totally implanted hearing devices. We have the only, as you'll see here on the slide, we have the only currently approved, FDA-approved, fully implanted hearing device. And we have a novel sensor. So when you think about Envoy, I want you to think about us using the natural ear to pick up sound. We do not use a microphone. We do not have anything on the outside of the head, and we do not have a subdermal microphone. We use a sensor to pick up the sound from the middle ear. So we are using the outer ear, the ear canal, and the eardrum to pick up that sound. Our second device, the fully implanted cochlear implant, which is what a lot of people are excited about Envoy for, is investigational right now. We are in 3 patients at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and we are very excited about how that is going to progress. Now, I'm going to spend some time talking about the hearing loss market in general, and part of that is because a lot of U.S. investors are not intimately familiar with the hearing loss market. Part of that, I believe, is the majority of the public companies that are hearing related are overseas. You have an Australian company, an Austrian company, a lot of companies in Denmark, but you do not have a lot of hearing loss companies here in the US listed on a major US exchange. So we're going to spend some time talking about why this is such a valuable market in general and why we can really bring a lot of interesting opportunity to investors in this space. So hearing loss is a massive market. Globally, we're looking at 1.5 billion people estimated to have some form of hearing loss during their lifetime, with about 430 of those people having what's called disabling hearing loss. This is a term the World Health Organization uses to describe hearing loss that is above 35 decibels. So this is when you're starting to not be able to hear certain sounds and it's impacting your life. The economic impact is massive. Untreated hearing loss is at least a $1 trillion problem every year globally. And these numbers are only going to expand. So you can see by 2050, they're estimated to be 2.5 billion and 700 million people with disabling hearing loss. And the other part of that equation is I want you to think about hearing loss starts to impact people the older you get. Now, this might be relatively obvious, but as we talk about the Acclaim device and the Esteem device and why they are such a great option for people, I want you to think about the fact that as people age, they get more and more likely to have some form of hearing loss. Now, looking a little bit more at the US market. So we're focusing in on the US market. It is the third most common chronic physical condition in the United States and more prevalent than diabetes or cancer. So it is a very, very large market, and it is not something there is a lot of opportunity to invest in here in the US. Now, that might seem strange because you could probably think about your family, your friends, and you're going to think about people who have been impacted by hearing loss, either significant hearing loss or some level. But you know somebody who has hearing loss, you know somebody whose life has been impacted by hearing loss. And that is not something you can say about every investment opportunity. As Americans live longer, there will be more people with hearing loss. We just discussed that globally, but it's also true in the US, obviously. With about 90% of people that get over 80 experience a large presence of hearing loss in their life. So as we age longer and as we strive to keep people along longer and living in their home, aging in their home, addressing their hearing loss will become a larger and larger interest of the nation. And there's about the economic impact on the U.S. It has been estimated to be about $300,000 per affected person in their lifetime. So when you think about the reimbursement arguments that need to be made, we can talk about how the impact of not treating hearing loss is more costly than treating hearing loss. And there is a lot of information, a lot of studies being done to show that the correlation between hearing loss and cognitive decline, depression, anxiety, and things like higher risk of falls, which are another economic impact. To really understand the benefit of our device and the beauty of our device, you need to understand the hearing organ itself. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through how the hearing works. So here on the screen, you have an animation of the ear, a cross-section where you see the ear, the outer ear, the ear canal, the eardrum, what is called the ossicular chain. Those are the three small bones, and then the cochlea. The cochlea is attached to a hearing nerve that goes off to the brain. The way hearing works in a normal hearing person like me is that you will have sound waves enter the ear, get picked up by the outer ear, and these goofy looking ears are for a reason. They help capture the sound and funnel it down to the ear canal. The ear canal will then take the sound to the eardrum where it vibrates like a normal drum, and you will see the ossicles will then engage, vibrate, and push on the cochlea. The cochlea is the source of where most hearing loss comes from. So the cochlea is filled with what's called hearing hair cells, which are essentially the ends of the hearing nerve. And over time, some people will experience damage to these hearing hair cells for a variety of reasons. Could be age-related, could be genetics, could be ototoxicity, somebody taking the wrong medication that might harm the hearing organ. But that is what is called sensory neural hearing loss. That is the majority of hearing loss, and that is what both of our devices are targeted towards. This is also why it's called a cochlear implant, because the cochlea is where you put the electrode array. Not all hearing loss is the same. I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking about hearing loss as one thing. There are varieties of types and there's varieties of levels. And these two next slides are geared towards helping you understand sort of the severity of hearing loss and why cochlear implants are used after hearing aids no longer work for you. So I apologize for the sort of kindergarten slide here, but it gives you an idea of the different sounds and how they rank sort of on the level of severity. So the normal hearing loss would be at the top of this graph, and the very, very significant, profound deafness is at the bottom of this graph. On the right, you will see hearing aids and cochlear implants, and this is to demonstrate that previously hearing aids were for the majority of hearing loss, and cochlear implants were just for those profoundly deaf people. Switching to the next slide, if you pay attention to the right, you'll see that cochlear implants have now moved up in their clinical indications. And again, this is not talking about our specific cochlear implant because that's in FDA trials right now. This is talking about cochlear implants in general. It has been shown the cochlear implants are now moving up in candidacy, and CMS recently has agreed to cover cochlear implants in expanding that candidacy as well. So the industry is moving to cover a larger portion of the population. Also on this slide, you'll see where the esteem falls in. So the esteem, again, is when hearing aids are no longer doing it for you, but you're not yet ready for a cochlear implant, the esteem is a fine option for those who want a fully implanted device. Now, the cochlear implants today are partially implanted. And so I'm going to go through a little bit of the sort of architecture of a traditional cochlear implant, and then explain why the Acclaim is such a great option. So as you can see on this slide, cochlear implants are relatively well known for having a large external portion on the side of your head. Here you see this woman has what's called a BTE, which is behind the ear. It will have the microphone, it will have some speech processing technology, and it will have a battery. It is tethered then to a coil, which has a magnet in it, and that magnet connects to another magnet on the inside of the implanted portion. And the implanted portion, as you see on the right, is a coil, and then it has a cochlear electrode array that goes into the cochlea. A couple of points I'd like to make about traditional cochlear implants before we start talking about the Acclaim. On the left of your screen, or I believe it's the left of your screen, you'll see what are supposed to be sound waves. Those sound waves for a traditional cochlear implant are not picked up by the ear. They are picked up by the behind the ear device using a microphone. So I've tried to illustrate where that microphone might be. It is not in your ear. You are not benefiting from picking up the sound through your ear. You are picking it up through an artificial microphone that's on the outside of your head and maybe pointed in the wrong direction. You can also see that these are very visible. These are very visible devices, and if you have a magnet on your head all day long, sometimes that can cause issues as well. I would like to now get into a little bit more specific about the Acclaim. We believe it is an obvious opportunity. If you are given the choice, you are told, look, your hearing loss is significant enough, hearing aids are no longer doing it for you, you need a cochlear implant. We have a choice for you. You can pick a partially implanted one with externals on the side of your head, or you can pick a fully implanted cochlear implant with nothing on the outside of your head. Which one would you like? We believe that a large portion of those candidates are going to naturally gravitate towards the fully implanted cochlear implant. The externals that are associated with traditional cochlear implants are obvious. People know that you have a disability. They also fall off. They have limitations of the microphone. So we think that the ability to have a fully implanted device, use your natural ear as the sound pickup, will really offer patients with a unique opportunity to address their hearing loss in a different way that'll hopefully enhance their quality of life, and we intend to follow that. And we think we're going to be the catalyst of change in a market that is frankly ripe for disruption. And we believe, my personal opinion, is that the existing players in the market have been complacent, and they've allowed for a company like Envoy to develop a novel technology like our sensor, and will be disrupting their place in the market. And as we gain market share, and as the world starts to learn more about Envoy, we're quite certain that we'll have a great opportunity going forward. If you look at the opportunity too, I want to highlight a very important point that you will see in the other cochlear implant companies' presentations as well. And that is that the penetration rate in developed markets for adults, and this slide specifically about the US, the penetration rate is abysmal. It is only 5% of people that could benefit from a cochlear implant get one. In other words, 95% of the people that could benefit from a cochlear implant choose not to get one. Our belief and our thesis around why we exist is that a lot of people, one of the primary reasons that they don't proceed with a hearing implant is because right now they're all external and they don't want those externals. A fully implanted device really offers a unique opportunity to increase the penetration rate and overall market. The Acclaim is a fully implanted device, and this is obviously a graphical representation. One of the challenges of having a fully implanted device is that it's not terribly easy to create a graphic to show what it is. But here you have a gentleman that superimposed image of the Acclaim. So the Acclaim has a battery pack in the chest, and then has a what we call the power data lead, which connects to the processor in the head. The processor then has two other components connected to it. The sensor that we talked about earlier that's picking up the sound from the ossicles. So you're using the natural ear, the eardrum's vibrating, vibrates the ossicles, and then our sensor sits on top of the incus bone to pick up those vibrations. And then you also have the cochlear electrode array. A couple of points that I would like to make on here that are may not be obvious. This is a novel technology to the point where FDA has already agreed it's a breakthrough device and has given us the breakthrough device designation. But it's the combination of all this technology that's really the novel breakthrough part of it. There is not a science experiment related to this device. Rechargeable batteries are something that have been in the medical device world for a while. Power data leads have been in other products. The surgery related to all of this is not unique. The cochlear implants by themselves are not. They've been around for 30 years, and our sensor has been implanted in over 1,000 patients for almost 2 decades at this point. So what I'm trying to allude to is we are not creating something that is a science experiment. This is a known market. It is an accepted therapy, and we are just making it fully implanted and believe that'll be very attractive to potential patients. I like to bring this slide up because I think it's a point that most people don't really think about and why we really emphasize using the natural ear. The ear is nature's microphone, if you will. So it has evolved over time to be the way it is to help us hear, right? You can think about other animals and how their ears have evolved and how it would impact. There is a reason the ear is the way it is. So when you use the outer ear and the ear canal, you get a benefit, a boost from using that compared to if you had a hearing aid stuck in your ear or a cochlear implant on the side of your head that picked up the sound through a microphone. If you're picking up the sound through a microphone, whether it's outside the head or subdermally implanted, you're not getting the benefit of the ear. And we really believe that's a differentiating factor for our device. Now, if it has a rechargeable battery, how do you recharge? This slide is here to demonstrate, again, in a graphic, not a real patient, but just a representation. There's a coil that's placed over the rechargeable battery. It's connected to what we call the charger, and that will transfer energy to charge up the battery. Currently, in our 3 patients in the trial, we're seeing about 4 days between recharging. We hope to optimize that over time. I will point out that the traditional cochlear implants very often have to change their battery or recharge their battery on a daily basis, if not more than a daily basis. So 4 days is a gigantic leap already. The other thing is when we picked the battery pack in the chest, we picked the architecture. We did that so we could give patients a longer battery between recharge. And that will also translate into the fact that they will probably only need to go in for that battery to be replaced every 10 to 15 years. But we will see where that goes. That's what the benchtop testing is suggesting. And again, to my earlier point, this is not a science experiment. You have other companies with rechargeable batteries, and this is a known entity. Again, my personal opinion, and they might not like me saying this, but I think the existing players are complacent. And I intend to fully disrupt the market with what Envoy Medical is up to. And you can see that in our ticker symbol, COCH. We are absolutely trying to disrupt this marketplace. These are images from the 4 players that are currently in the market. Cochlear is the largest player, followed by MED-EL and Advanced Bionics, who tend to trade 10 to 15, 20% market share. It kind of goes up and down every year, but Cochlear has remained about 2/3 of the market share for quite some time. Then you have Envoy Medical, who is actually divesting to Cochlear right now. So there will be three main investors, or 3 main players if that goes through. Why do we bring up the competitors? Well, one of the main reasons is because this is a valuable market, and that has been demonstrated in the value it has created for the existing players. Envoy Medical's current market cap is a fraction of what the existing players are. And we believe that when we start to educate the market and push the market towards understanding why a fully implanted cochlear implant is going to make a difference, that you will see that we are currently an undervalued company. Now, when it comes to the fully implanted progression, are there other companies that are working on it? MED-EL and Cochlear have made statements that they are working on what they call a TICI, totally implanted cochlear implant. We sometimes call it a FICI, but they're the exact same thing. Fully implanted or totally implanted cochlear implant. A couple of things we'd like to point out, though. Envoy is and still remains the only company with a fully implanted active middle ear device on the market. We are the only company that has a fully implanted hearing device that has been FDA approved. So we have a head start in terms of understanding the fully implanted nature. Our sensor has been in patients for a very long time, and we're well versed in it. We are also in an early feasibility study. We're the only ones that we're aware of that have done the early feasibility study in the US. We have breakthrough device designation by the FDA. We're not aware of anybody else having that. And we have an investigational device exemption for that EFS study, right? So we've already had to demonstrate to the FDA that we've met certain standards and procedures. What's left, obviously, is commercial approval. Again, we'd like to point out, as you think about Envoy Medical and you think about the investment of Envoy Medical, a couple of points. If you had invested $1,000 in Cochlear in 1995, you would have had a great return today. Also, if you look at another Minnesota company that we like to compare ourselves to sometimes, is Inspire. INSP is their ticker. They also disrupted a market, and they've done quite well as a result. If you look at Inspire, they are in the sleep apnea market. They are competing with non-surgical devices, just like a hearing aid, if you will, is similar to a CPAP in that it's non-surgical, much cheaper. But they have been able to demonstrate the value in having a fully implanted device. And that is something that has happened across other markets as well. Sleep apnea, pacemakers, glucose monitoring. It is a natural progression of medical devices to go from external to internal, and we are happy to be leading that charge in the hearing industry. Quickly, just a breakdown of where we're at in terms of track to commercialization. So as I mentioned, we have an early feasibility study that's currently going on Mayo Clinic. We are planning to have our IDE submission for the pivotal study next quarter, or the first quarter of 2024. And then that study we are anticipating will have 40 to 50 patients, be concluding around 2025, and look for commercialization in 2026. And I've alluded to this, but this is the first public presentation Dr. Driscoll of Mayo Clinic gave when he talked about his initial experiences with our acclaimed device at a national cochlear implant meeting. Thank you. And Anna, I'd be happy to have you back, and we can answer any questions.
Yes, great job. Such an important technology. My father suffers from hearing loss, and it's as hard for him as it is for us. So let's talk a little bit. You've listed a number of features for your device, but what do you think would be the most compelling reason a patient, like my father, would select a fully implantable device from Envoy over, let's say, the traditional cochlear implant?
Yes, I think the fact that the device is fully implanted offers so many obvious benefits, right? When you talk about a fully implanted device, you're talking about something that is going to be naturally waterproof, for example. So you can wear it when you take a shower. You don't have to take it off. If you get stuck in the rain, you don't have to worry about it getting broken or lost. I've heard so many anecdotal stories as well about patients who have had a hearing aid or a cochlear implant, and they can't find it when they wake up suddenly, right? So you have a patient who maybe is startled at night and has to wake up, and they looking for their device, they can't find it. With a fully implanted device, it is on. If you choose it, you can always turn it off. But if you want it to be on 24/7, it'll be on 24/7. And I think that is going to make a massive difference for people. Look, there's other things such as when somebody has a job that requires a helmet, for example, if you're a construction worker and you have a helmet, or you like to ride motorcycles, or you play sports that require a helmet, you don't think about the fact that when you have something external on your head, it gets in the way of those things. So a fully implanted device really allows you to sort of live as you normally would have lived if you did not need an external device.
Makes total sense. I can't tell you how many times I've had to reach in between my father's car seats to find his little hearing aid. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about the Envoy Acclaim. So would the Envoy Acclaim qualify for reimbursement using the existing codes?
Yes. So the current thought process is so there are cochlear implant codes. So there's existing reimbursement in the U.S., and I'm much better versed on the U.S. than I am internationally, but that's okay because the majority of the market is in the U.S. anyway. When you look at the U.S., there's a national coverage determination already for cochlear implants. So it's an accepted therapy. This is not something that we're going to have to convince CMS that cochlear implants work. There is an ongoing discussion, and we haven't reached the conclusion yet. There's an ongoing discussion is, do we use the existing codes, or do we eventually go after our own codes? And I will tell you that I'm very interested in potentially just using the existing codes, because I think that would put a tremendous amount of pressure on the existing players. And again, I'm very interested in making sure that we are disrupting this market.
And talk a little bit more about these codes. Are they enough to cover the cost of the device and surgery, or will you need additional coverage?
Yes, when it comes to the codes, the reimbursement for the surgery, the device is adequate. Obviously, doctors like to say that they always wish they had more coverage, or hospitals always wish they had more coverage for a device. The programming of a cochlear implant is something that the audiology community is working on getting better reimbursement for, but that's going to be a problem no matter which device you have. But the surgery, the hospital, the facility fee, the anesthesia, the existing codes are adequate.
Good to know. Talk a little bit about FDA approval. If you get it and you go to market, how do you sell this product? And I mean, will you need a huge sales force? Talk a little bit about how you would target it as well.
Yeah, I love this question because in part, we do not need to go to every cochlear implant center that exists. That is not going to be our strategy. Our strategy is going to be to hand select the best of the best in a certain market to get a geographical spread, but we are not looking to be at every ENT clinic or every cochlear implant clinic in the nation or in the world. We learned with the Esteem when we rolled that product out, people will travel for surgery. Mayo Clinic is in Rochester, Minnesota. For those who don't know, never been to Rochester, it's not a lot except for Mayo Clinic, right? It's a destination where people have flown to for decades to get care. We know people will fly for surgery, and we are going to target the best surgeons with the best audiologists who are going to give the best patient care, and we are going to go deep with those centers. So we're going to sort of play an 80-20 rule, which is to say about 20% of the CI clinics, and these are just rough ballpark numbers to illustrate a point, 20% of the CI clinics probably do 80% of the surgeries. So if you can get those 20% on your side doing your cases, you're going to get a large portion of the market. If you look at all of the surgeons who have ever done a cochlear implant, some of them do maybe one, maybe two a year. We're not interested in those sites. We are interested in the sites that are doing 100, 200 cochlear implants a year and really focusing on making them helping them distinguish their practice by taking part in the Acclaim.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that answer. We've got a question from Richard Handke. I like this question as well. He wants to know what drives your passion for hearing health and these devices. How did this all come about?
Sure, that's a great question. So I think the story of how I became involved is tied, again, to my family experience with hearing loss. So my father was one of the beginning investors in Envoy Medical, actually, many years ago. And the reason he invested in Envoy Medical is my grandfather wouldn't wear his hearing aids, refused to wear his hearing aids. So you would have a situation where every Thanksgiving or Christmas, my father was screaming at my grandfather, "Where are your hearing aids?" And he wouldn't have them, or he had lost them. And so my father wanted to find a surgical solution. And there was a company called Envoy Medical that was just getting started. And he became an investor in that. Over time, as I mentioned, I worked at Envoy since 2007. Over time, I went from marketing intern to in the field, and I talked to patients, and I would meet with patients, and I would talk to them about how hearing loss impacts their life. And I would talk to audiologists who are so passionate about taking care of patients. And you realize this is an invisible disability. Not a lot of people realize, you know when somebody has a physical condition for the most part, but this is an invisible disability, but it impacts everyone. And when you can go to work every day and help somebody live a better life, it makes it worth it.
That's a great backstory. We have Paul Cohen wants to know about how your product is currently being marketed and what's the process to educate. Also, will doctors and ENTs clinics be incentivized to educate and promote?
Sure. So we'll break that into the two products. So for the Esteem product, we are currently not actively marketing that product in a large way, in part because we are focusing on the Acclaim development and getting that product to market. The Esteem device currently does not have reimbursement. So we are, until we can crack that reimbursement code for the Esteem, we are focusing our future efforts on the Acclaim. Now, I will say, if we can have a positive impact in reimbursement related to the Esteem, have a change, and we continue to work on that, that would create a whole opportunity for us that we are not currently pushing on. So in terms of education, we are going to go to the proper sites. We are going to go to the conferences that are related to hearing loss. We are going to be educating audiologists so that they can educate their patients. But I will tell you, just the very little press that has started to get out about the Acclaim, we are already hearing from audiologists of patients contacting them saying, "I want the fully implanted version." The demand is there. So this is a pent-up demand that has been pent up, I believe, for decades. And people are waiting for a fully implanted version. So once they know we exist, I'm quite certain they'll figure out how to find us.
Makes sense. Question, maybe our last question due to time, from Allison. She wants to know a little bit more about the battery. Is it wireless charging? Does it sit against the battery in the chest? Can you explain that?
Sure. It is wireless charging. So one of the FDA rules and regulations, you can't be plugged into the wall while you're charging. So I try to conceptualize the device by telling people it's like an external spare battery for your cell phone. So it has the program, or the charger has about 2 charges worth in the device. You can have it in your pocket, and you put the telecoil over the location of the implant. It'll tell you sort of where you are. It'll help sort of give you a bullseye of, okay, you're over the implant, to optimize charging. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to charge. And the idea of where we're headed with that, after we optimize some things, is we hope to get you about the goal would be to get you about 7 days of hearing, and then you charge maybe on a Saturday or Sunday while you're folding laundry or watching TV. And it shouldn't impact your life. Again, that's vastly different from the existing devices, which have batteries, either like your zinc air batteries that you're familiar with from hearing aids, or a rechargeable battery, and often need to be changed or charged once a day or even more often. So the rechargeable battery in the chest, we think, really offers a great opportunity. And the other thing I would say about that is not having the battery in the head, we believe, is a benefit. We could have put a rechargeable battery in the head, but that battery then would have had been quite small, and it would probably have needed to be recharged maybe once a day. And from your cell phones, if you are doing charge, discharge, you get about 1,000 charge, discharge cycles before you start to lose capacity of the battery. So if you're doing it once a day, you're talking about every 2.5 to 3.5 years, you might need to replace that battery. By doing it in the chest, being able to recharge it, maybe once every or twice a week or once every week eventually, you can allow that patient not to have to undergo a lot of surgery.
Well, fascinating technology. Grandfather would be proud. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us. And we would love to have you back in the future with some updates.
Oh, absolutely. We're happy to do that.
Terrific.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
everyone stay with us. We'll